It's October 8, 2019, and this is Globespan 24x7 News. Good evening and thanks for joining us. My name is Samuel Suknandan, coming to you live from Georgetown, Guyana. Here are the major headlines for today. Another miner killed after pit collapses in Region 7. Conversation needed on dual citizenship, says political analysts. GCOM forging ahead with administrative agenda. Rise in U.S. currency, a worrying trend. Bank of Ghana probe welcomed. And lack of institutional support affected rice farmers, says the GRPA. Over to you, Whitney.
Thank you, Samuel. Good evening, and here are the headlines for today in the region and around the world. Guyana's economy will rank among mega oil producers by 2025. Venezuela forced to give crude to Cuba, a solution to keep the oil wells pumping. A man allegedly shot in the head over $300 in Princestown, Trinidad. And the U.S. blacklists Chinese entities amid trade war. Join me in just a little while for these stories and more. Let's join Kingsley Bryan at the sports desk for more news and a taste of what's happening in the exciting world of the Caribbean Premier League. Over to you, Kingsley.
Thanks, Whitney. Well, we'll tell you first and foremost that the Ramdanis had an impressive showing at Alberta tournament. But in CPL news, the Hero CPL and Tap and Play have created a collectible digicard system. And internationally, South Africa secures World Cup quarterfinal spot after a crushing defeat of Canada. These stories and more, of course, in your sports update. Samuel, back to you.
Thanks, Kingsley. And now for a look at the news. The Ghana Police Force has applauded the brave and courageous action by members of the public who this morning haven't witnessed an armed robbery committed on a 20-year-old male in front of his Diamond East Bank Demerara residence, pursued the two suspects and managed to apprehend one of them. A gold-colored chain, which was stolen from the victim, was recovered from the captured suspect, and an unlicensed revolver with 6 live matching rounds was found nearby. Efforts are being made to apprehend the other suspect. Meanwhile, a miner lost his life tragically after a mining pit in which he was working collapsed, adding to a long list of persons who have died under those same circumstances in the industry over the years. More in this report.
The dead man has been identified as Ryan Taylor of Albert Street, Albertown, Georgetown. Taylor was attached to the Troy Resources mining operations at Karuni Region 7. According to reports, Taylor and his colleagues were working in a pit early this morning when a section collapsed. Globespan 24x7 News understands that Taylor was working on the section that collapsed. The group tried to get him out as soon as they could, but by that time, he was dead. Since news of his demise, there have been an outpouring of messages of grief and shock. But one friend posted on social media that the area was a time bomb awaiting to explode. The friend of the deceased went on to state that the environment was one of the most unsafe places. They always complained of not making targets and chased the goal without seriously considering the safety of locals, the friend added. Natural Resources Minister Raphael Trotman and staff has since expressed their sincerest condolences to the relatives and friends of Taylor. The minister has since instructed the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission to begin making the necessary preparations for a thorough investigation of the matter. A report is to be compiled and submitted upon completion. In the interim, all work in the area of construction has been ordered ceased, pending the investigations. The ministry continues to urge miners and companies to exercise extreme care when carrying out these operations. The ministry further urges all involved in the sector to always be in compliance to evade any risks and fatalities as the above. In January 2018, 23-year-old Handel Payne, also called Daggy, of Canefield Housing Scheme East Bank, Demerara, died after the mining pit in which he was working at 35 miles Canarawalk Back Dam collapsed. In April 2018, a miner named Kevin Adams, 25, of Linden Region 10, died at Chinese Creek Back Dam, Mazaruni River, after a pit caved in and buried him alive. 1 month later, in May, Kenny Rani, 20, a resident of Camarang Upper Mazaruni River, died after he was covered in mud after a wall of a mining pit in which he was working collapsed at Pepper Camp Back Dam, Upper Mazaruni River. Again, 1 month later in June, miner Elmo Adams died after he too was buried alive after the walls of a pit caved in at Imbamadai, Upper Mazaruni. Back in 2015, 10 persons died in a mining pit in the Konarawak area after it collapsed. The incident saw 17 miners being buried under a pile of dirt and rubble, but 7 managed to escape alive with various injuries. The deaths were blamed on heavy rains in the area, improper mining design, and poor safety practices at the mining camps. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shikima Day.
Thanks, Shakima. Troy Resources Guyana Inc. has temporarily halted operations at Karuni Gold Mine in Region 7 following the incident. The company in a release stated that they are deeply saddened by the incident. Quote, "We always make every effort to ensure the well-being of all of our people, and this incident brings home the need for utmost vigilance in safety at all times," end quote, the statement added. The company says it is in close contact with the family of the former employee and is providing full support. They also hope to hire a grief counselor to help their employees cope with this tragic loss. A full investigation is to be conducted by the family and relative authorities. Following the weekly statutory meeting of the Guyana Elections Commission, GCOM, it was revealed that the Commission is now focused on advancing its administrative agenda, which is necessary for the conduct of general and regional elections in March 2020.
To reactivate the work of the admin committee, that committee has to look at the number of vacancies that have not been filled, specifically in terms of a logistics manager, in terms of an assistant chief elections officer, in terms of a research person, and in terms of a person responsible for voter education. Those are vacancies. Obviously, those vacancies have been affecting the capacity of the Secretary of Police work, and the admin committee is scheduled now to meet on Tuesday so we can advance the process of filling in those vacancies. The operations committee itself is intended to meet on Friday so that they can look at the issues pertaining to the house-to-house information, how that will be used, etc. And the commission itself will be meeting on Friday. So in a sense, the commission is now in the mode where it's likely to meet twice a week of the commission towards elections.
That was government-nominated Commissioner Vincent Alexander following the meeting today, who also added that the issue of filling those vacancies was put on pause until a new chair could have been selected. As it relates to the other associated processes, Alexander noted that progress is being made.
Well, encoding is ongoing. All of the transactions have gone past stage 1 of the encoding process. All of the transactions. Claims and objections are ongoing, basically. They're ongoing. That's for part 2 day period, and we will vote about that.
Alexander said, according to his information and in his view, the claims and objections exercise has so far gained an average response. Meanwhile, opposition-appointed Commissioner Says Gunraj, on the other hand, detailed that as a body, they are still awaiting more information on the various key processes.
Well, we are trying to get more details as to the process so far, the same details that we spoke to you about last week. We haven't gotten the entirety of those details as yet. And once we get that, we're trying to make decisions. We've gotten updates on the claims and objections process. We are trying to get some more details into about the house-to-house data. We understand that some of the prints have been sent off for cross-matching, so we are waiting for details of that as well before we take this.
Gunrad said, according to his information, response to the claims and objections exercise is not as fast-paced as the Commission would have hoped.
I understand from the CEO that there were 2,127 transactions, 2127 transactions for claims and 2 objections so far. They have now said that the encoding process is scheduled to finish on the 15th of October.
Gunraj concluded that the process is ongoing and noted that satisfaction on the outcome of individual basis may not be the best goal to have at this point. And in other news, the Central Bank of Ghana has indicated that a probe will be launched to ascertain the reasons why the U.S. currency skyrocketed to a whopping $230 at the weekend. Globespan 24x7 News sought comments from two economically astute Guyanese to provide a better understanding of the cause of the fluctuations and possible remedies. Kingsley Bryan brings us the details in this report.
The issue of shortages of foreign currency, specifically the US dollar, on the local market at certain intervals is nothing new, but continues to be a bother when it arises. Governor of the Central Bank, Dr. Gobin Ganga, relayed that the issue has caught the attention of the government, since over $6 million was pumped into local banks, and a probe will be launched to determine the reasons. Chartered accountant and political commentator Christopher Ram, in an exclusive telephone interview with Globespan 24x7 News, opined that the Bank of Guyana may have underestimated the situation.
It's a normal feature of a floating exchange rate. But what we should be worried about is if the decline persists and there is no correction in the system. Now, if the Bank of Guyana is saying that it has plugged money into the market and it's not having any effect, then we might very well be running down our reserves without any without the desired results.
Ram noted that the price for foreign currency always depends on the relationship between supply and demand. He highlighted, however, that while the issue is not new, there would be cause for worry if certain trends continue.
Well, perhaps the Bank of Guyana thought it might have been a temporary hiccup in the market and is now recognizing this is a more systemic and prolonged and substantial issue.
Ram posited that the reasons for the fluctuation are multiple, one of which may be the political uncertainty that prevailed, and as such welcomed the investigations, but deemed them late since the issue has prevailed for too long. On the other hand, financial analyst Sesnarayan Singh opined that while the factors for the fluctuations may be many, a number of other economic indicators must be used to make an accurate determination.
One factor has been the state of the Trinidadian and the Barbadian economy has been a key driver in the extraction of notes from this economy. They've been bringing Bajan dollars and Trinidadian dollars into Guyana persistently, not just now, for more than a year this has been happening. And they have been exchanging it for US dollars and taking those notes back to their country because they need those monies to supplement their economy. So the Cubans are also bringing euros and Canadian dollars to Guyana and exchanging it for US dollars because there's a shortage of US dollar notes in Cuba, and nobody is really taking proactive measure.
Singh said two separate transactions have to be taken into account: the actual physical notes and wire transfers. He said there may be a handle on the wire transfer aspect, but a better handle is needed on the notes.
I think the government is being a bit, lethargic in taking proactive action in stopping these Trinidadian and Bajan traders from lifting money. I mean, big companies, I don't want to call name, but they have some big Trinidadian companies in Guyana. They are actively involved in lifting these monies out to Guyana, actively. And it's a serious, they're into supermarkets, they're bringing a lot of these products, they're into pharmaceuticals, all these things, and they're lifting US dollars out of this country in us.
Singh also posited that the probe by the bank is welcomed, and he's confident that the governor is well equipped to carry out the investigations. He, however, urged that it is concluded swiftly, since the Christmas season may result in even higher rates and the reemergence of an underground market. For Globespan 24x7 News, this is Kingsley Bryan.
Thanks, Kingsley. The partially decomposed body of Imani Leach was on Monday recovered from the Cara Creek, Mackenzie Linden, following an intense search action. The 9-year-old went missing after he fell into a section of the Cara Creek in Linden on Saturday last. According to reports, his body was discovered floating in a section of the creek at around 12 hours 30, after relatives and other residents in the area formed a search party by a boat into the creek. Police were called to the scene and the child's body was removed and taken to a nearby funeral home. It was reported that Leach on Saturday was sitting on a wooden bridge at the creek with his mother and other relatives when he slipped and fell into the water. His aunt reportedly grabbed his hand, but this resulted in both of them falling. Relatives frantically attempted to save both of them, but only the aunt was pulled from the water. The now deceased child was a student of the Regma Primary School in Linden. Just days after former Foreign Affairs Minister and PNCR executive Carl Greenidge announced his decision to relinquish his British citizenship, former opposition chief whip and PPP executive Gail Teixeira has now come forward to say that she too has renounced her Canadian citizenship. Both politicians have now paved the way for their return to the National Assembly and to be on their party's candidate list, and by extension to continue their careers in local politics. Teixeira told sections of the media that she received her renunciation since June 26, 2019. Greenidge, on the other hand, announced on Saturday last that his British citizenship has been officially renounced, paving the way for him to continue his political career. Given this recent move, Globespan 24x7 News sought the opinions of two local analysts. Dr. Henry Jeffrey told this newscast in an exclusive interview that he feels that Greenidge made the right move.
He wants to remain in politics in Guyana, and that's a legal requirement, and I think that he has done the right thing. On the other hand, I think we need to have a national discourse on whether one should not be able to be a citizen of another country and be a parliamentarian in Guyana. That discourse has not really taken place. What has occurred is that we have had some kind of a discussion during a very emotional period. Remember the old Charandas thing? Yes. What I think we need to do is to sit down and think this out very clearly, because my own feeling is that people should be allowed to be in parliament even if they are dual citizens. I mean, some of the biggest companies in the world are run by other nationals, and there are things that you can put in place to prevent any untoward behavior you might believe that such people will have or have a tendency to do. So I think we need a national discourse. He had to do it. It's good that he do it. He's a contributor to national development, and I see it as fine.
Meanwhile, political commentator Christopher Ram told Globespan 24x7 News that the move could be seen as one that shows the political ambitions of those who have relinquished their dual citizenships.
Well, all they've done is brought themselves in line with the Constitution. That's all they've done. It may be that they're very comfortable just being Guyanese only, or it may be that they want to get back into Parliament.
Teixeira was among 7 members of Parliament, 3 opposition and 4 government who had to resign from the National Assembly and as ministers because of their dual citizenship status, after a court ruling confirmed that dual citizens could not hold those positions. The issue of dual citizenship arose late last year when former coalition member of Parliament Charandas Prasad, who also held a second citizenship, voted with the opposition to pass a no-confidence motion against government. Along with Greenidge, former Minister of State Joseph Harmon, former Business Minister Dominic Gaskin, and former Public Service Minister Dr. Rupert Roopnaraine also resigned. With the exception of Gaskin, who is a born Briton, The others had indicated the intention to renounce their second citizenship. Harman has a United States citizenship, while Rupnarayan has a UK citizenship. Harman said recently that he has already made an application for his US citizenship to be renounced. Meanwhile, in addition to Shera, Adrian Anamaya and Odinga Lumumba also gave up their parliamentary seats. However, Amaya said he will not be renouncing his US citizenship. Remember to like our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel for the latest news in Guyana, the Caribbean, and around the world. Join us after these messages for more news with Shakima Day.
Globespan GT is a proud sponsor of Globespan 24x7 News. Here are some exciting news from Globespan GT. Fares have dropped for next year, starting January 20 to August. American Airlines has cheap fares on non-stop flights to New York. Flights are as low as $306 one way and $540 round trip, all tax included. Take advantage of these cheap fares on American Airlines non-stop flights to New York. Globespan has also cheap fares to Miami, Toronto, Canada, and the Caribbean. Call Globespan GT in Georgetown at 227-1701, that's 227-1701, or in Rose Hall call 337-4298, and New Amsterdam at 333-6230. That call Globespan GT in Georgetown at 227-1701, that's 227-1701,
or in Rose Hall, call 337-4287.
And in New Amsterdam at 333-6230.
Welcome back and thanks. And now for more news. Following repeated requests for interventions by the Minister of Natural Resources, Raphael Trotman, for relief to miners, the Ministry of Natural Resources has directed the Guyana Geology and Mines Commission to grant a final amnesty for miners who are in arrears in terms of payment of rental for medium-scale properties. The amnesty period will be facilitated through the GGMC. The granted grace period commences on October 1, 2019 and ends on December 31, 2019, a total of 92 days. This will be given to all medium-scale property owners who are in arrears and whose properties have not been published as cancelled in the official gazette. With the period given, the penalty occurred on such areas will attract a waiver of 50%. It is important to note that the grace period will not be extended, and all property holders who do not avail themselves to this offer will have their properties cancelled. As such, all medium-scale property owners are advised to utilize the opportunity to make all outstanding payments of rentals prior to the deadline. Meanwhile, Guyana's standing as an agriculture nation should never be compromised given our historical dependence on that sector. One of the major crops that contribute largely to our gross domestic product is rice, and that sector has been a consistent backbone of the Guyanese economy. While this may be so, General Secretary of the Rice Producers Association said the necessary agricultural institutions are failing the country's rice farmers. In this regard, he lamented that the RPA was forced to seek alternative route for the redress.
That it doesn't make sense for a country like Guyana to tax the agriculture sector when our farmers have to compete with countries and farmers that are providing subsidies to their agriculture sector.
CRAJ further detailed that the Guyana Rice Development Board is not the only agency which has been slothful in handling its remit.
The RPA itself has limitations as it relates to providing services itself. You know, we mostly do representation. We used to provide an extension services which was paid for by the Guyana Rice Development Board, and they stopped paying for that service in May of 2015, and we continued to provide that service till up to December 2016, but they have not paid for it, and this is service that was provided, and so now we have been forced to take the GRDB to court for payment for services provided along the lines of extension to farmers. And I think the industry has suffered because of a withdrawal of our services, and farmers don't have any confidence in the extension service that is being provided. And there's that critical link between the farmers themselves and institutions
The RPA General Secretary also stated that in addition to this increase, which has proven quite burdensome to most farmers in Region 5, the MMA authority also increased the land rent by approximately 700%. Siraj maintained that the reasons given for this was not substantive.
The MMA authority has been lapsing in terms of oversight in the infrastructural maintenance of Region 5 itself, and a small crack became a huge breach because they were unable to effect a stitch in time, and that is why we have these issues going on. Tomorrow, the MMA is taking farmers to court for payment of DNI charges, and they have failed to provide the services. And you have to provide the service before you get paid for it. Added to that, of course, they would have moved the DNI charges from $2,500 per acre to $8,000 per acre.
Siraj, when questioned on the issue, disclosed that in his view, the actions of those agencies mirror an agency whose actions are under political directives.
It was a political move, and I fail to see why they would have linked that. As General Secretary of the Rice Producers Association, I interact with all farmers, and they have people on our General Council that are from both sides of the political divide. So we are as apolitical as possible within the Guyanese context, and we don't mix that. And up to then, like I said, we continue to provide a service, notwithstanding not getting paid. We submit our invoices, and we hope that that the government would have seen the wisdom of engaging a farmers organization that was established since 1946, and to continue to assist us in providing a service to the agriculture sector that is second to none in the Caribbean.
Globespan 24x7 News, in an attempt to further clarify the court's challenge by the RPA against the GRDB's decision, solicited a comment from the General Manager of the Guyana Rice Development Board, Nizam Hassan, who posited it would not be wise to pronounce on a matter that is currently engaging the courts. We'll tell you now that Terence Matry, also called Throwback, will spend the next 12 years in prison for the 2016 murder of his bedridden mother at their Myconi home. The man appeared before Justice Joanne Barlow on Monday to be sentenced for murder, but instead he pled to the lesser count of manslaughter. Matry confessed to the gruesome killing of his mother, Cecilia Matry, between April 18 and 21, 2016, at their Good Faith Myconi home. He was sentenced to 21 years in prison and was ordered to take anger management classes along with alcohol and drug abuse classes. The state's case, presented by prosecutor Sarah Martin, revealed that Matry was the sole caretaker of his bedridden mother. They both lived together at the said address. On April 18, 2016, the accused hit his mother on the head with a piece of wood, causing her to become unconscious. He attempted to revive her, bathed her, even tried feeding her, but to no avail. He then changed her pampers and placed her on a piece of cardboard to rest. A witness on the same day heard Matry verbally abuse his mother. They then heard a loud groaning noise from the woman. She was later discovered wrapped up in a netting on her bed. Police received a tip and ventured to the home. When they arrived to check on the woman, Matry simply said she was sleeping. He later confessed on April 22 to the crime. Meanwhile, PAHU WHO representative Dr. William Aduko has announced that Guyana has been free of the yellow fever disease since the year 1968, a feat that has been possible due to stringent efforts by key health officials in Guyana's government and international bodies. More in this report. Yellow fever continues to be a major public health problem in the Americas. Despite vaccination in endemic areas, sporadic cases and outbreaks continue to occur. The cycle involves the circulation of the yellow fever virus among non-human primates and mosquitoes that live in trees in tropical rainforests. In light of this, the Pan American Health Organization PAHU organized a 4-day workshop, which commenced earlier this morning, aimed to structure a system and capacity building for the surveillance of non-human primates and applied entomology of yellow fever in Guyana. Dr. William Adukro, PAHO's Guyana representative, in his address to the participants, stated that the World Health Organization strategy for the elimination of yellow fever is a global one for the optimized control of the disease.
The strategic objective of the elimination is to protect populations at risk, prevent international spread, and contain outbreaks quickly. For this, it is recommended: 1. Introduction of the yellow fever vaccine in the National Vaccination Scheme for children in endemic countries achieving high vaccination coverage, national vaccination campaigns for the population residing in risk areas and updating campaigns in susceptible geographical areas according to age groups and specific subpopulations.
According to Dr. Ado Crow, it is considered a positive to note that Guyana has been yellow fever free since 1968. But, he said, we need to work to keep that standard.
In 2019, 3 countries in the region of the Americas, Bolivia, Brazil, and Peru, reported confirmed yellow fever cases occurring between December 2018 and February 2019. In 2018, there were 5 countries and territories in the region of the Americas that reported confirmed cases of yellow fever: Bolivia, Brazil, Colombia, French Guyana, and Peru. Guyana borders especially...
Since Guyana shares borders with these countries, Dr. Crow said Guyana should be on the alert. Meanwhile, Deputy CEO of the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Dwight Waldron, pointed out that the workshop was timely since Guyana is venturing into the oil business. He noted that with oil comes several health challenges.
Guyana is becoming an important hub in this part of the world. We heard about flights next year from Ghana and other countries that will be coming directly to Chedijagan International Airport. I think that by itself should tell us what we should expect moving forward. From the GLDA standpoint, we are going to continue to work to ensure that all zoonotic diseases, our One Health program, we're going to continue to ensure that they're fully funded as much as we can, so as to ensure that we can allow the Guyanese population, those expats, persons visiting, to be comfortable.
The objective of the non-human primate surveillance mechanism is to prevent the occurrence of human cases through a thorough investigation of epizootics and investigations of the presence of the yellow fever virus in non-human primates and in vectors. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shikima Day. As Fire Prevention Week 2019 gets underway, Fire Chief Marlon Gentle announced that the Guyana Fire Service has seen a spike in outdoor fires, bringing with them a number of environmental health risks. More in this report. Fire Chief Marlon Gentle announced that with the focus being placed on environmental safety this year, citizens are warned against starting outdoor fires, since the Guyana Fire Service has seen a significant increase.
While we have been seeing an increase in fire calls, we were also seeing an increase in fires involving outdoor type activities. Moreover, on the people using fires to do land clearing and these kind of factors which impact also on lives, because it has a health side effect, it has environmental side effect. It also has an effect on traffic and people's daily lives.
According to the fire chief, Guyanese need to be more conscious of the environment when dealing with fires, since climate change is a big issue. To this end, the fire chief said that they will be conducting several sensitization outreaches in schools, businesses, and government ministries and agencies. The aim, he said, is to reiterate the importance of fire safety.
Trying to re-energize that whole thought of fire safety, because as you would know, fire safety starts with a person, every one of us, and what we do and how we go about doing our daily activities. That also has an impact on how safe we operate and how safe we are. We, as members of the fire service, while we would want to be that person who is leading this kind of a charge, so to speak, in fire safety, we'd like also to know the public to know that they have also a very important role, because it starts with them. While we would like to be in everyone's homes or place of work on a daily basis, we cannot. So we have to depend on them also to exercise that caution, exercise that risk elimination and everything else that will cause their environment to be safer, and also the reduction of fires in the environment.
Gentle also noted that the exercise will focus on fire safety in businesses, since there are several companies that are yet to adhere to the rules and regulations of the Fire Prevention Act. Fire Prevention Week 2019 is being held under the theme, Save Lives, Protect Property, Strive Towards a Greener Environment. The week of activities kicked off on Sunday last with a church service and will end on Saturday. The week will culminate with a fire safety fair and exhibition at Durban Park and wrap up with the commissioning of a fire boat. Fire Prevention Week 2019 coincides with the Guyana Fire Service's 62nd anniversary since its establishment in 1957. For Globespan 24x7 News, Shakima Day. In other news, the Guyana Agriculture and General Workers Union, through its Assistant General Secretary, Aslim Singh, took part in a two-day meeting of Latin American and Caribbean trade unions affiliated to the World Federation of Trade Unions. The meeting was held on October 2 and 3, 2019, and took place in Buenos Aires, Argentina. It brought together some 50 trade unionists from several countries in the region. GAHU, in its address to the meeting, used the opportunity to bring attention to the heavy burdens of the workers that they face in Guyana. The union pointed out that in recent times, the workers and their families have been confronted by heavy increases in the cost of living, occasioned by the imposition of new taxes, hiking of existing taxes, and the withdrawal of subsidies to workers and pensioners. Apart from that, the union's Assistant General Secretary told the meeting that Guyana's democratic culture and rule of law are being undermined following the failure of the government to abide by the consequences of a successful no-confidence motion in the National Assembly. The union pointed out that the democratic and other forces in Guyana were now engaged in a new struggle to restore constitutional rule through free and fair elections. We will now take a short commercial break. Do stay tuned for regional, international, and diaspora news with Whitney Prasad at our New York studio.
Travelspan is a proud sponsor of Globespan 24x7 News. Travelspan has some cheap fares to Guyana on American Airlines flights. Fly from January for 234 one-way and 512 round-trip. Take advantage of these cheap fares on American non-stop flights from JFK to Guyana. That's non-stop flights from JFK to Guyana, starting as low as 234 one-way and 512 round-trip. And also has the cheapest fares for Christmas that starts as low as $7.99 round-trip. Travelspan celebrating 25 years in business with over 10 offices to serve you. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Or book online at travelspan.com. Book early and save.
To keep up with breaking news in Guyana, the rest of the Caribbean, and on the international scene, like, follow, and subscribe to Globespan 24x7's Facebook and YouTube news page. Join the conversation, get live news on the go, and news and details right here on Globespan 24x7 News. Thanks for staying with us. Thank you, Shakima. Now for a look at news in the region. With Guyana's oil production rapidly growing, the country's economy is set to rank among the mega oil producers of the world, paving the way for major changes as it relates to economic overview by the year 2025. Economists believe that oil extraction will be dependent on how far into the future Guyana will be producing oil and how well revenue will be managed during the peak of oil production in Guyana.
There is no question. The issue of sustainability, I think everybody, the public is well aware that the volume of oil that is being discovered in Guyana is enormous. I mean, I'm reading articles on the news, on global news networks that puts Guyana in the ranks of some of the biggest mega producers in the world. So clearly there's a lot of oil. Now, as to whether or how we decide to extract and the rate at which we will extract that oil clearly will depend on how many years out into the future we remain an oil producer. And that, again, no one knows exactly what that number is. How and what this would mean for Guyanese consumers is an entirely separate question. Producing the oil, like I said before, this oil will be produced and made available on the world.
According to the U.S.-based financial analyst Dhanraj Singh, based on government's decision, Guyanese will either benefit from cheaper oil locally to operate machinery and other consumption purposes, as is the case with most oil-producing nations, or government may decide to subsidize the revenue for oil, trickling it down to the ordinary man. The Nicolas Maduro regime has decided to give away crude to Cuba as a seemingly counterintuitive solution to keep the wells pumping in the country, as the oil economy faces the risk of losing production capacity and selling to international markets owing to the U.S. sanctions in the Havana's windfall. Washington's sanctions have led the country to lose clients, forcing the state-run company to store crude, but tanks are now full, and given the risky choice of stopping production, the regime is choosing to send more oil to Cuba, even though that does not provide any hard currency the state offers. The Caribbean island, which for years benefited from billions of dollars in oil provided yearly by Venezuela, began to suffer fuel shortages after Caracas began cutting down its aid from 120,000 barrels per day as it peaked to less than 50,000 by early this year. Venezuela faces serious production problems that cut output to 1 million barrels per day from a peak of 3.3 million barrels. And a man has reportedly died after he was shot in the head on Sunday following an altercation which he got into over 300 Trinidad and Tobago dollars. Relatives of Christopher Springy Moore said the gunshots were heard at about 5 p.m. on Perry Young Road, Indian Walk on Sunday. When residents checked, Moore was found dead with a gunshot wound to his head. According to reports, Moore had gotten into an altercation with a man at a bar the night before over the $300 which was owed to him, and he confronted the man about the money. Subsequent to the confrontation, an altercation ensued and gunshots were heard. When residents checked, Moore was dead, the men escaped, and an investigation has been launched. A high-level conference in Peru was told that illegal wildlife trade is increasing in the Americas. The conference heard that after drugs, guns, and human trafficking, wildlife trafficking is the world's most lucrative organized crime, with an annual value of about $20 billion each year. This is according to a 2016 report by Interpol and the UN Environment Program. As the world's most biodiversified continent, Latin America is a hub for criminal trade. Wildlife trafficking is increasing in most countries in the region. Interpol's head of forest crime, Salvador Ortiga, said whether it is trade in live wildlife or dead animals and their parts, the countries from which they originate need to take the crime more seriously. He emphasized that they need to understand that they are part of a supply chain for a transnational criminal organization. The 27 mostly Latin American and Caribbean countries at the conference agreed to share intelligence and enforcement and take the crime more seriously. About 50 police officers have been taken hostage, and indigenous groups have blocked roads and highways as protesters against the state's neoliberal economic policies continues in Ecuador. Radicals have been on the forefront of the struggle against IMF-imposed reforms and against the police state that is attempting to enforce these reforms with brutality. Protests began when Ecuador's corrupt president announced the end of fuel subsidies. Hundreds were arrested, dozens of police officers hurt, several police cars destroyed, and a local government building was attacked. Ecuador's government has agreed to cut public spending as part of a loan deal with the International Monetary Fund, IMF. The agreement signed in March allows Ecuador to borrow $4.2 billion. The Department of Commerce has announced 28 Chinese companies to its entity list, a trade-in blacklist which forced U.S. companies to seek government permission before they can do business with any firms listed on it. The department cited human rights violations as its reasons for banning the 28 companies. Specifically, these entities have been implicated in human rights violations and abuse in the implementation of China's campaign of repression, mass arbitrary detention, and high-technology surveillance. The ban will cut the companies off from potentially crucial American suppliers and marks a fresh escalation in the ongoing geopolitical spat, even as officials prepare to sit down to resume talks next week. 2 weeks before October 21st elections, Canada's 6 party leaders took the stage at the National History Museum in Quebec on Monday night, with only one official English language debate scheduled. Scheer and Trudeau went back and forth, and the debate mostly saw Trudeau defending his record from just about everyone else on stage. Meanwhile, the NDP's Jagmeet Singh took advantage of Scheer-Trudeau scuffles by getting in a few well-timed chirps about how much the two bickered. It worked a few times, and Singh may have again distinguished himself for the positive message in this campaign that may help him go into the 2023 election. The 2019 Canadian federal election will take place on October 21st, 2019, to elect members of the House of Commons to the 43rd Canadian Parliament. Sources have said a Brexit deal is essentially impossible after a call between Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Angela Merkel. Johnson and the German Chancellor spoke earlier about the proposals he put forward to the EU, but the source said she made clear a deal based on them was overwhelmingly unlikely. Mrs. Merkel's office said it would not comment on a private conversation, but President of the European Council Donald Tusk sent a public tweet to Mr. Johnson telling him the future of Europe and the UK was at stake. With efforts to get a deal by the end of the month on an apparent knife edge, Boris Johnson and his Irish counterpart have said they hope to meet later this week. The President of the European Parliament said there had been no progress and MEPs would not agree to a compromise deal at any price. Students across Bangladesh are protesting after an undergraduate was beaten to death at one of the country's most prestigious universities. The body of Abrar Fahad, 21, was found in a dormitory days after he posted comments criticizing the government. Several students of the student wing of the governing Awami League have been detained in connection with the death. The killing has shocked Bangladesh and shone a light on the culture of violence in public universities. The government has promised to bring those responsible for his death to justice. His body was found on Sunday at the Bangladesh University of Engineering and Technology in the capital, Dhaka. The Bangladesh League, the student wing of the Awami League, has been widely accused of using torture and extortion against students. West African politicians and film stars are among thousands calling for actions following a BBC report into sexual harassment at a top university. A year-long investigation by BBC Africa Eye released on Monday explored the harassment at the University of Lagos, Nigeria, and the University of Ghana. The film showed lecturers propositioning undercover journalists. 3 of the men featured, 2 in Ghana and 1 in Nigeria, have now been suspended pending the investigations. The 2 Ghanaian professors have denied they were offering sex for grades in the undercover exchange. Social media users and high-profile figures are demanding action and sharing their own experiences. Nigeria's First Lady Aisha Buhari said on Monday that the current situation simply has to change. Productivity in the UK fell at its fastest annual pace in 5 years in the April to June quarter, according to the Office for National Statistics. The figure measured by output per hour fell by 0.5% after 2 previous quarters of zero growth. Both services and manufacturing saw a fall from April to June, the ONS said. It added this sustained period of decline in labor productivity represents a continuation of the UK's productivity puzzle. The ONS added that productivity since the economic downturn in 2008 was growing more slowly than during the long period prior to the downturn. That's all for news in the region and around the world. Let's join Kumar Doshi for tech news in India. I'm Whitney Prasad reporting from New York. Do have a great rest of your evening. Stay tuned for more news.
Thank you, Whitney. Namaste, salam, good day everyone. This is TechBeat on Globespan 24x7. Today in Tech News, we will discuss technologies used in vehicular safety. Traffic collisions are the biggest cause of injury-related deaths worldwide. Some 1.35 million people die each year owing to road traffic accidents, and between 20 and 50 million people suffer non-fatal injuries causing disabilities as a result of it. Cars are being designed with basic and extreme features, including but not limited to seat belts, airbags, adaptive cruise control, anti-locking braking system, etc. Regular airbags using impact sensors inflate within 25 to 50th of a second after impact. New technology in impact sensors using MEMS or micro-electromechanical systems to detect collisions and deploy airbags in a fraction of the time as conventional airbags. A Forward Collision Warning System, or FCW, is an advanced safety technology that monitors a vehicular speed, the speed of the vehicle in front of it, and the distance between the vehicles. This system will warn the driver of an impending crash or if the driver is too close to the rear of another vehicle. FCW system uses sensors to detect slow-moving or stationary vehicles. In road technology terminology, a lane departure warning system is a mechanism designed to warn the driver when the vehicle begins to move out of its lane on freeways or arterial roads. Lane departure warning is a simple monitoring system that uses cameras and sensors to detect lanes. Though these technologies exist, accidents occur due to irresponsible driving, breaking traffic rules, and failing to meet safety standards. It cannot be stressed enough how important it is to keep the roadways safe and stay alive. That wraps up for the Tech Beat for today. I'm Kumar Doshi bringing tech news from India. Back to the studio in Guyana for more news to come. Thank you.
Thanks, Kumar. We will now take a look at our bridge reports. And we'll now shift our attention to what's happening in the world of sport with Kingsley Bryan.
Thanks, Samuel. Here's a look at what's happening in the sporting arena. We'll tell you that the Ramdanis had an impressive showing at an Alberta tournament. A statement from the Ghana Badminton Association has noted that Narayan and Priyana Ramdani excelled at the Yonex Alberta Series No. 1 tournament held at the Sunridge Badminton Centre in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, between October 4 to 5, 2019. The duo won the mixed doubles C flight, and Priyana won the women's singles and doubles B flight. The statement also noted that the performances of the duo is extremely great, especially as they are up against some of the top competitors in the No. 1 ranked Pan Am country. In the semi-finals, the duo Narayan Ramdani and Priya Ramdani defeated Arkelanjo Kuano and Archal Uano 21-17 and 21-15. And in the finals, Narayan Ramdani and Priyana Ramdani defeated Viro Hang and Ivy Hung 21-12 and 21-15 respectively. In the finals of the women's double B flight, Priyana Ramdani and Mary Smith defeated Carol Fu and Jessica Long 21-14 and 21-13 respectively in that match. And turn our attention now to CPL news. We'll tell you that the Hero CPL and Tap and Play have created a collectible digicard. The Hero Caribbean Premier League and Tap and Play are working together to bring fans the chance to collect Hero CPL digicards. These cards can now be downloaded using the Tap and Play app, where they can be saved and traded. Fans using the app can unlock special achievements, and the CPL progresses towards the knockout stages. Fans can play games to win in-game coins to unlock cards, or they can buy whole sets through the app. These collectible DigiCards have been available for the ICC Cricket World Cup and the Big Bash in Australia. Chris Watson, Hero CPL's head of marketing, said they are always looking for innovative and engaging ways for fans to get more involved in the tournament, and these tap-and-play cards are a perfect example. Neil Armstrong, the managing director of Tap and Play, noted that trading cards have entertained sporting fans for decades, and Tap and Play are really excited to work with the CPL to introduce fans to the new world of digital trading cards through the Tap and Play app. Fans can collect all the cards of their favorite players and teams and the special cards that are released to celebrate the milestones throughout the tournament. To download the Tap and Play app for iOS devices, you're advised to go to bit.ly/howzatiTunes. I repeat, bit.ly/howzatiTunes. And for Android devices, it's bit.ly/howzatGoogle Play. Repeat, bit.ly/howzatGoogle Play. And turning our attention to international news, Andy Murray is expected to make an exciting Grand Slam return. We'll tell you that former world number one Andy Murray will make his Grand Slam singles return following a career-saving hip surgery at the Australian Open in January, and that is according to tournament director Craig Tilley, who told an Australian radio station Triple M. Murray underwent a second procedure on his hip in January this year, after admitting in a tearful news conference at the Australian Open that he had been playing in considerable pain for some time and was considering retirement. The three-time Grand Slam champion, once considered part of tennis's Big Four, alongside Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal, and Novak Djokovic, returned to the professional circuit in June, initially only competing in doubles. At last week's China Open, the Scot ranked world number 289 and reached his first ATP Tour singles quarterfinal for more than a year, losing to eventual tournament champion Dominic Thiem. On Tuesday, Murray faces Italy's Fabio Fognini in the second round of the Shanghai Masters after beating Juan Ignacio Londero to record his first Masters 1000th victory in more than 2 years. Also, we'll tell you that South Africa secured a World Cup quarterfinal spot after thumping Canada. Cobus Reinach scored the fastest hat-trick in Rugby World Cup history, as South Africa ran in 10 tries to secure its place in the quarterfinals with a 66-7 victory against Canada. The scrum half scored his first try in the 9th minute with a superb run from deep inside his own half before going over again in the 17th and 20th minute. The Springboks ran in 6 tries in the first 27 minutes before things went from bad to worse. For Canada, as substitute lock Josh Larson was shown the 6th red card of the World Cup for an illegal shoulder charge on the neck of a South African. Playing against 14 men for more than 40 minutes, South Africa touched down 4 more times in an overwhelming victory. Flanker Matt Heaton's try just after halftime did ensure Canada got on the board, with just its second try of the tournament. Since losing its opening game of the World Cup to New Zealand, South Africa has beaten Namibia and Italy, meaning it needed a bonus point victory for scoring 4 or more tries to secure its place in the knockout stages. And that has brought us to the end of our sporting news for today. Join us tomorrow as we continue to give you more updates of what's happening in the sporting arena. Back to you, Samuel.
Thanks, Kingsley. And that has brought us to the end of today's news. Before you go, here's a recap of our major headlines. Another miner killed after pit collapses in Region 7. Conversation needed on dual citizenship, says political analysts. GCOM forging ahead with administrative agenda. Rise in U.S. currency, a worrying trend. Bank of Ghana probe welcomed. Lack of institutional support affecting rice farmers, says the Rice Producers Association. Thanks for watching Globespan 24x7 News. On behalf of myself, Samuel Siknander, the news and technical team in Guyana, New York, and India. Until next time, do have a great evening. Goodbye for now.